there's so much generational wisdom from different countries of how the body can heal itself and all natural things that you can do. And once I was able to open my mind to allow this beautiful Eastern culture, our food ways, right, our medical practices, our natural, herbs, that help the body, that also just was like a huge breakthrough. Hi, I'm Sonia Hunt. I'm an author, food allergy activist, and Tedx speaker. And on today's episode of Ever Forward Radio, we are going to be chatting about living with severe food allergies and how I overcame them after hitting rock bottom and almost dying 4 times in my life. So I hope you'll join us.
3, 2, 1.
We got a certified nut job here on the show, everybody. This is perfect because I don't know if I do this on purpose, but we just wrapped an interview with Robert Sykes. We're talking all about the ketogenic diet. And so today we're rolling into another unique nutrition concept, and that's allergies. What's going on in our foods that may or may not be causing havoc internally, externally, and what to do about it so that we don't have to sacrifice our life for the foodstuffs that we love. Sonia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm totally a certified nut job. I like that.
You got one hell of a story. And what I love about your story is that you had this unfortunate, kind of horrific life experience, but then you didn't keep what worked for you to get through that to yourself, which is what I love to highlight the most on the show is people that go through something, you figure something out, you optimize your life, your mind, your body, your soul, and then you go out into the world and share and talk about it. So please take us back to that moment when you realized that I got to change something in my life. I just cannot accept this as my fate.
Yeah. So child and adult of severe food allergies, environmental allergies, and asthma. I always say it's a trifecta nobody wants. And that started at age 3. So throughout my life, our only plan really for my parents and I, since I was diagnosed so young, was, 2 things. Don't eat food that you're allergic to. And, there's no cure for food allergies. So you got to take a lot of medication to suppress symptoms if, you have some allergic reaction. And so, the plan with my doctors was always to just focus on physical health. And I've had many severe incidents that's taken me to the hospital. And then I had even more severe incidents that have manifested into anaphylaxis. And so throat closing up, I can't breathe, we're rushed to the ERs. Otherwise, I could die. And the 4th time that happened was in 2008. And out to dinner with a great group of friends. I'd just gotten off a plane being in Asia for a business trip. And, something at the dinner caused me to go into a delayed reaction of anaphylaxis. So I kind of was like not feeling good at dinner, and internally, like something felt off, but externally, like there were no hives or anything like that. So it wasn't really sure what was going on. And about 2 a.m, when I felt like, a Mack truck hit me and there's like somebody pushing down on my chest, I just suddenly woke up and, inched toward the bathroom, turned the light on, and I was just covered from like my scalp all the way to my toes in huge, huge hives. And, I always say, like, I looked in the mirror and I saw like Jabba the Hutt, and that caused me to like start to hyperventilate. And now I'm like crying, looking at this like monster in the mirror. And, at that point, like I couldn't even regulate my brain to like calm down, to find EpiPen or anything. The only thing I could do was I picked up my phone, I speed dialed my sister, who's on the East Coast, who called 911. And then, boom, the next thing I know, I'm in the ER. So sitting in the ER, bed for days because my hives were so bad that they just didn't want to release me. I just had this like, come to Jesus with myself. I was like, all right, this is the 4th time this has happened. Obviously, I'm doing something wrong because otherwise, why would I be here again? And I was like talking to the universe, as I say, like while I'm laying in the bed, and I'm like, okay, well, we've got two choices, right? I'm either not going to make it, or, you know, I'm going to be walking out of here in a few days. And then if I am allowed to walk out of here, I have to change everything, because I felt like I was doing, not only I was managing my food allergies wrong, I just felt like I was like living life wrong, right? There was like no purpose. So I had like all these flashbacks into like, you know, work and what I'd done in my life. And it just was like all crashing down on me, like similarly to like that ton of bricks that I felt like was sitting on my chest. And I was like, I'm just doing everything wrong. Like I don't have purpose. You know, purpose is not about like working 120-hour weeks to make more and more and more money, to move up like the chain, you know, of command at your company. But what is this all about? And then obviously as well, I'm not taking care of my body, the one vessel I get during my time on this earth. So that truly was like, if I could even articulate was rock bottom felt like, that was rock bottom for me. And, you know, so I made this like pact with the universe, and I was like, if I get out of here, you know, like I will change everything.
Spare me.
Spare me, you know, like I promise. And as if somebody, you know, had a sense of humor about it, because I have a sense of humor in all of this. For the next 1 year of my life, all those hives were all over my body.
They stayed.
They stayed. They didn't go away.
Oh, no.
You know, it was that constant reminder of like, well, you said you're going to change everything. So, you know, they're not going to go away until you change stuff. And that's how I knew, like, you know, the universe and I were very serious about what was happening. And that was the starting point where I said, okay, I'm going to like literally dissect everything in my entire life. And as you can imagine at that time, like I was dealing with just like mental health crisis without even knowing it. Right.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah.
And, you know, culturally, you know, I'm first generation Indian American. Mental health is not something that we talk about. We don't discuss like our feelings, you know, or anything like that. Therapy has always been looked down upon in the culture. So what I didn't realize and was starting to realize then was the mental, spiritual, and emotional toll that I also had sitting on me in addition to physical toll, because every single day of my life, I can't put a piece of food into my mouth unless I think about it, because I could die. And that is what started, you know, my long journey. And that journey, which, you know, I would say I'm a different part of that journey now, but that journey was 10 years long. And I like truly dissected, you know, all of the areas, you know, body, mind, spirit, emotions, worked with many, many new types of medical practitioners as a huge team. And, you know, we got to root cause of like everything that was going on. And a decade later in 2020, I found out that I eliminated all of my food allergies, and I am, knock on wood, still in remission.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, you bring up a point that I love to hear. Unfortunately, you had to go through it in an unpleasant manner, but I love to hear when we are faced with something physically that our mind becomes wrapped around that, and our approach to change that becomes our top priority. But it sounded like you pretty quickly realized everything else that you needed to wrap your mind around as well in order to get through that, to endure it. There's the physical aspect, clearly, but you're talking about the mental, emotional, spiritual. How did your mindset change? How did your emotions change? Like, how did your heart space change when going through that year of priority being a physical change?
Yeah, I mean, and in my book, you know, the very first step to change that I have is changing your mindset, you know, and like no amount of physical, you know, things, like we were already doing them all of my life, right? Like medication, I was doing, you know, immunotherapy, like allergy shots, desensitization shots, things like that. I was not eating physically like food that I shouldn't. But, you know, the toll that it had on my brain, you know, I basically like had to start with what I realized then was that I also just didn't love myself, if that makes sense to you, you know?
Can you say that again? That's pretty powerful.
I didn't love myself, you know, and that realization, God, was just so heartbreaking. All my life, like having this issue since I was 3, I let other people lead my life and say, well, you're 3, you don't know anything. You know, of course, that's fine. My parents, my doctors, they'll make decisions. But now I'm 3, I'm 5, I'm 10, I'm 15, whatever. And it was just so easy to leave my life in someone else's hands. And I had these realizations because I had nothing but time sitting on the ER table, right? And it was almost like supernatural. It was just like all like slapping me virtually in the face. And, you know, I didn't own my health. I felt like I didn't own my life. And I was like, you know, do I even like love myself then if I'm not taking ownership for this? Like I'm allowing certain unhealthy behaviors into my life and I'm not really figuring out like, why is this all happening? You know, which is also weird because as by degree, I'm an engineer and it's all about like asking a ton of questions and building foundational things. Right. But somehow I was on like autopilot for life based upon what society or people were telling me, like how to live. So when I realized all of this, I was just like, okay, this is all really great. And I'm someone who's like big on whiteboarding and strategy and, you know, and I write a lot of things on there. So now I'm like, how do I actually start to like really get into the heart of all of this? And of course you can't do this in the black box, right? So for someone like me, you know, I felt like I needed a program, but there are no programs out there for someone like me, right? And if you have severe food allergies, everybody's allergy situation is different. So like if you and I have nut allergies, peanut allergy, your health situation is different than mine, right? So we might have some similarities, but so I was like, oh God, you know, none of these programs out there speak to me. So I have to actually like create something that is, you know, based in science that I know will help me get healthy in terms of physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. I know I need help, right? So this is how I slowly started to like pull apart these layers and then say, okay, like right now I got to attack my mindset. You know, let's start bringing in, you know, a therapist into the mix. Like, doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You know, I started doing a ton of research of just other people that have completely like overcome some kind of health issues and how did they do it? What was their story? You know, read a ton of books on mindset, growth mindsets. And I was like, okay, you know, where is my mindset right now? Is it fixed mindset or, you know, so, you know, I'm really spent a lot of time like doing research, reading, you know, talking to like every medical practitioner I could. And then, you know, kind of like analyzing and figuring out what's best for me and getting their buy-in. But the biggest thing that I did is I said to like my team of physicians, I said, I'm now going to run the show because, you know, for decades that I've been working with you guys and other people, the only thing you've told me is this will never go away. And I don't accept that. And you need to take a lot of medication and it's making me crazy. So I said, I want to run the show and here's how I want to do it. And it was like the first huge step to me starting to set myself free.
Taking
and
your power back, really.
Right? Like completely taking that, like finding power and taking it back. And then all of a sudden I felt like this, like again, visceral, like this love of like kind of filling my heart of like, you know, you've got this, you know this, you know, you're an intelligent woman and there are people out there that will help you with all of this. But I had to get my head around all of that. Right. You know, and I'm big on meditation and manifestation and visualization and really visualizing like that future healthy self just also really started to fill my heart with a lot of, you know, like hope and joy and love. Right. And now it was about the action plan to see that happen in real life.
You know, you remind me a lot of what I've gone through, and I think we have some similarities of kind of being in a very unpleasant, unfun, painful, unfortunate set of circumstances with our health. I went through about a year and a half of just in and out of the hospital, being a patient, rehabilitating, learning how to walk again twice, actually. And I want to ask your opinion now on the other side of it, because this is where I've been lately kind of going through it. You clearly adopted a lot of new mindset shifts during the process. And when I think about what you went through and when I think about what I went through, only now, 15, 16 years later for me and my injuries, I'm actually acknowledging and giving myself credit for what I went through in terms of like really experience, like, wow, Chase, like your career stopped. You were told you weren't fit enough, good enough. You were no longer physically capable of being the thing that you wanted to be. So there's a whole identity component to that. There's having to go through rehabilitation. There's having to completely change your life. While it taught you a lot, and you're on the other side of it now, you and I both, but that's a really significant traumatic event. And so I'm curious, you clearly went through a lot during, but now on the other side of it, are you revisiting that period of your life through a unique lens of kind of like grieving that identity loss, of really acknowledging what you went through and kind of just giving yourself grace again?
Yeah, I mean, wow, such a great question. Like, really, I don't think anyone's ever asked me this before. Like going through like COVID, right? I had so much time as well to kind of be home, be alone in my thoughts and process. But that was a whole other set of couple years of just where you really had to work hard on your mental health, like every day, right? And I think actually now, 2022, coming out of it, because during COVID, my book was being written and edited. So, I find that a lot of times, and I'm here in Silicon Valley, I'm in this world where everything's like, fast, 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 do it, figure it out, go harder. And like, if you don't take the time to also like celebrate those wins, you just get caught up in that same toxicity, right? Like what was happening, those hives, right? In Ayurveda, they believe that the reason why you have hives all over your body is this toxicity is trying to get out of your body. And I write a lot of this in my book because Ayurvedic medicine is one of the things that I incorporated into my world. And
Same.
So, right? Yeah. And so I feel like even though in 2020 we figured out, that my allergies were now gone and I'm in remission, there was all this other toxicity going on in the world that I was still being affected by. And I was just like caught up in it. So it truly is now that I feel like I'm through some really huge things that I am starting to process the fact that I could eat peanut butter. Right? I can go to a restaurant and say, I used to have an allergy to nuts. Are there any nuts in this? But I'm not as afraid anymore, of cross-contamination or things like that. So I think I'm in it right now. I say to people, like, it's so hard to process when you've spent 4 decades being sick. And then one day, although it took 10 years, we worked on everything. One day you get this diagnosis that, hey, you're no longer sick. And I'm just like, what? So I'm still like processing. I'm still in the middle of it. And the thing that I have to think about every single day is just like you said, like I have gone through so much. I really need to like pay homage to it, who I was, who I grew, up during that time. And who do I want to be now going forward? So there's actually like huge life decisions happening in my world as we speak and all like really amazing as I'm even focusing, now my career on this health and well-being space to be able to help others who are struggling with it so much. So I would say I'm literally like day by day, I'm still processing all of that, but I definitely have to celebrate like everything that was accomplished.
Oh yeah.
and take pause and, breathe. And, there's plenty of time to kind of do other things. But yeah, I'm definitely still processing all of it.
You were kind of hitting on it, but I want to ask you directly, how do you manage fear now? Because, sometimes in my case, if I'm really feeling myself and I want to go all out in the gym or maybe push myself on a hike, there's that little part in the back of my head is like, hey, Chase, remember what happened last time you pushed yourself too hard. Remember these injuries. I had this reoccurring kind of like nightmare of my pins popping out of my hip because I tried to push myself in the gym. With you, you're talking about like, I used to have this allergy and I don't need to worry about eating this or going out to this restaurant. How do you manage fear now? What role does fear play in your life or does it?
Yeah. That little like inner critic is like always there, right? Telling me something negative or trying to like embed itself into my brain of like, I can't do this, or I shouldn't do this. In the past, I've had periods of time in my life where, I still had all of my allergies, but I wasn't physically having reactions. And, what I say is that I kind of like let myself go, if that makes sense to you, right? And I was just like, oh, well, since, the allergies are there, but nothing's happening, so let's just like really enjoy life. I work a lot on being conscious. Just of everything around me, right? And again, a lot of this is like in meditation and visualization, all the education that I have around food and cooking and all of that. If I am able to, really kind of like take pause before I do things and think consciously about it, it doesn't mean I have to like go all the way to the negative, which is fear. But if I'm able to kind of like take pause and really think about what's happening, I find that I'm not allowing the fear to like come into my world. So again, it goes back to a lot of times I think that we're just like rushing through life. And a lot of what I had to learn to do was like, time out, stop, calm down, right? Let your brain be like clear, take pause and start to think about things consciously, alive, vibrant. And then what you're able to do is if that fear comes in, you can nicely just push it away. Right. And sometimes that manifests into, I do think that I'm very self-aware. So if I need help, then I will just like, text somebody and be like, I need like 10 minutes because like my brain is all over the place and this fear has like entered in. I can't maneuver it out. Right. So that's like, I have a chapter on like making sure you surround yourself with like truly the right people and how do you figure out who the right people are? And so these are people that are really invested in you. Right. So I have kind of like these little things that I do to be able to allow the fear to come in for sure, but then maneuver it out because in my heart of heart and in my gut, I know that, even if it happens, that I can get through it. And one thing that life has shown me is going through so many, health issues and almost dying several times is like, I can get through anything. So I just have to have faith. Yeah.
In all of your work around this to take your health back and to maintain this new level of wellness, do you have an idea of what maybe was the source of all this? I know the obvious is a food allergy, but in visiting a lot of allergies and visiting a lot of physiological manifestations of, poor health, beyond that, a lot of times we can say, oh, it was, during this period of my life, it was heightened stress. I was in a toxic relationship. I was living in fear for my life. A lot of these different things that play into the psyche, the mental, the spiritual aspects. Do you have any idea of maybe what that was, or have you kind of gotten to like the root cause?
Yeah, we did. So, allergies are part genetic, part environmental. My father has like, environmental allergies, not foods. And nobody in my immediate family had any food allergies. But, there's research that actually states that, living in the United States 10 years or longer will make you susceptible to allergies, which is just crazy, crazy research, right? And I don't think even most people know that. I worked also with that team of medical professionals. I incorporated functional medicine into it, and we tested my gut health. Never really knew the state of it in a sense. Found out that I had leaky gut syndrome. There's correlation between, we're starting to see more research between the correlation of food allergies and leaky gut. And once we started so that was like one area that we then dove into and worked on different ways with completely, again, redefining relationship to food and what I was eating at the time. So even though I was eating foods that I was not allergic to, they might not have been healthy for my gut. Right.
Yeah,
so there's
really good point.
So much of that. Right. And then also even exercise, like I'm like the queen of running, and there's different types of movement that allow toxicity to move out of your body as well. That's restorative. Right. I mean, think about yoga or Tai Chi or, different forms of movement. So we looked at that. And then we also looked at like very personalized plan of supplementation of what could help my gut health, and if I could eat it, I would, right? Like kefir, radishes, like I would, rather get them through the food than even take a supplement. But leaky gut was something that was at the core of that why, for sure. And then environmentally as well, just even in the home, like we tested for everything, like molds that could affect leaky gut, the quality of the air in, my house that could affect the body as well. So there's so much to like dig down into. But I would say gut health was the biggest factor that changed for the better and the positive. And then all of a sudden my skin like started to like shine, like literally like shine and vibrate. And people would be like, what are you putting on your skin? So that was one of the biggest things. And I think in the food allergy world, people aren't looking at that, right? There's still a lot of fear of like, okay, I just have to do what the doctor says and I can't eat the stuff I'm allergic to and I have to take all this medication. And I was like, no, there's like a gazillion other things to look into. I always say you have to want it bad enough, right? You have to want to transform bad enough. You have to, in your mind, put it above and beyond like everything, right? Because when your health and well-being is off, your workouts are off, your relationships might be off, your work could be off, therefore your finances are off. Like it seeps into everything. So when you really prioritize that above all and kind of start digging into this question of like, what's going on? Why is it going on? And start to figure that out. That's when you can really have big breakthrough. And for me, having never in my life had one doctor said, hey, we should like test your gut health or anything. Never. It was so unbelievable to me, once we did. And when the functional medicine doctor said, that's the first thing she said is like, we should test, everything to do with your gut health. And I was like, why would we do that? But, so this is why it's also good to, as I call it, like expand your awareness to other forms of healing.
Yes, so true. That's exactly what I did, was just become a sponge of anything and everybody and every place that was talking about getting some kind of improvement. Started off really with the physical self because that's what I needed. I needed physical healing the most of the time, but then it just became, well, what else? What else? Yeah. And outside of these parameters, outside of this modality, outside of this approach to diet, training, hot, cold, in, out, yin, yang, I mean, go, and be still. I mean, all the above just continue to be all facets of my personal wellness and all facets, of the amazing conversations and people we talk about here on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been just like such a transformative time in my life that, I kind of am grateful for going through all of this, right? Because it has made me such a more resilient person in life, able to literally handle anything that might come my way. Fear comes in, great. I can just push it out, right? Like so self-confident, so self-aware. And now I'm able to like really thrive in life. Like I am truly living life.
Killing it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what was maybe one or two really surprising things beyond the obvious of, kind of clearing up this, the hives and everything you were going through, but maybe something that you tried, that maintained, that gave you an unexpected benefit, unexpected result as you were going through this personal health quest? What was maybe one or two things that really just blew your mind as to, wow, my body responds really well to this. I had no idea I could feel this way, look this way, move this way. And because you approach things very holistically.
Yeah. Again, another really great question. Some of the things that really, one of the things I think was just like finding a voice that I just never felt like I had all of my life.
That's a pretty powerful one. Pretty powerful one.
Yeah. Because once I actually started to work on that and I found that voice, I was like, I love that voice. It's so, smart and kind and funny and just, right. It's so me. And that me I had not shown the world that me all of my life. I am just now showing the world that me.
Nice to meet you,
right?
Sonia.
So,
hello.
Thank you. Thank you. You're like one of the first people that I'm saying that to. So yeah, and so that was just like a huge, huge breakthrough for me. It was like finding that voice, and then taking it outward, which I call humanizing, like food allergies, right? So now I'm like taking it all outward. The other part was, born and raised in the US, parents came from India, and there's always been a duality in my life, East versus West. And I shunned everything Eastern, like most of my life, because society in the US told me that I needed to be like, 5'9", skinny, blonde, and I was ugly, right? And dealing with that as like a teenage girl is just horrendous. Now you have issues with food. It's even more horrendous, right? You can't tell anybody. So there was in 2008, months after I was out of the hospital, I'd called my mother and said, all this medication is just making me like cuckoo, it's making me feel nutty. And like I'm at work and people will ask me questions in a meeting I'm leading and I'm just like blank stare. Right. Like brain fog-ish. And so that was the time where she kind of talked to me about like opening my mind to Eastern medication or like Eastern practices of health. And so I think the other interesting thing for me was, right, there are many forms of healing. And there's so much generational wisdom from different countries of how the body can heal itself and all natural things that you can do. And once I was able to open my mind to allow this beautiful Eastern culture, our food ways, right, our medical practices, our natural, herbs, that help the body, that also just was like a huge breakthrough. But I was always
not to get into a tangent, but I'm sure really finally opening up your epigenetics. I mean, there's beyond just cultural, there's actual science to be said about where you come from, what works for you, what doesn't.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm so glad you're here on the other side of it now.
Yes, thank you.
So nice to hear. I totally relate and know exactly what you're saying when you're like, I'm finally being me. I'm letting my voice be heard. I'm hearing it for the first time and then sharing it with other people. And that's what I want to get into next is how you shared it with other people. You've been on just this health quest for others now through, your TED Talks, through the book. How are you approaching this approach differently? You've been on your personal health quest, but now you're sharing it with others to hopefully help them do the same. Are you treating it any differently? And what's this been like now?
Yeah. So I'm actually, launching. So I was certified as a integrative health coach. So I went and did that.
IIN?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so now I'm putting out, launching programs to help people in a similar situation who are dealing with food allergies, food intolerances, right? Like food related health issues to overcome, heal, and to begin to thrive in life. The book, the TEDx talk, those were like two huge pieces of all of this to just share this knowledge, right? In the food allergy community, it's so great because everybody, I say, becomes like a private investigator and they find so much information, but it's still hard to like make sense of it. So, people should think of me as like this guide that will help them and be with them every step of the way in their journey. And whatever, my North Star was actually to try to get rid of my food allergies while I aged healthily. And so, I am now working with people to, with similar situations to actually be able to do this. Cause sometimes you're just at a loss with like, where do I start?
Truly. Yeah.
Right. So, and in all of, the programs in the future that I will launch outwardly, it's again, we're thinking and as a techie at heart here in Silicon Valley, I've spent all of my career in digital media tech. So I'm looking at other new technologies like metaverse technologies, AR and VR, right? Like how could we improve the food allergy space using those types of technologies as well? So even though like I'm kind of like in the forefront of all of this innovation that's happening in Silicon Valley, I still always have to remember that like, people are dealing with like, what should I eat today? Because, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to have a reaction. So they're very simple things. But I'm really excited about having, done the IIN program and launching these programs out, for individuals and corporations, and also to the university level, which is, think about kids. Like I was once a kid that went to school and I was away from my parents. And now I'm like trying to make friends. And like, I just was like, I won't eat because I can't get sick. And that's a whole other slew of issues. Right. So my programs will help people who are dealing with that.
No doubt. But you piqued my curiosity about the scope of work that you're in and wanting to use that through the lens of nutrition to help people. So how do you see technology? How do you see the metaverse? How do you see these new digital frontiers? How can we use them for working on our nutrition to better our physical self if we're talking about a digital platform?
Yeah. And I just actually did like this keynote speech on reimagining our foodways in the metaverse. And what I talked about there is it really starts at what our value systems are around our food. Like the tech is the tech. We can build anything, right? But if we're building the same unhealthy, make people sick, food is killing us, value systems in now the metaverse, then we've already failed, right? So for people who are dealing with things like, severe food allergies, it is going to be a place where you really can reimagine what that healthy self of your life looks like, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and connecting with the right resources in the metaverse to be really like educated on yourself, on what's going into your body, growing your own food, setting up communities of like-minded people who want to change even policy around food in the metaverse. So there's like a ton of things that we can build, but I think the base, and you already have brands like McDonald's and Burger King and everybody who are gamifying things and saying, great, now we'll give you like a free Big Mac and stuff, right? It's already started. So that's why I kind of come back to like, what are those value systems in the metaverse? And then when you're dealing with food issues, what should those value systems be as well? Because food in this country is what's killing us, right? It's how we grow it. It's what we spray on it. It's what's in it or what's not in it. And our bodies are basically just rejecting that in the form of allergies, right? Mm-hmm. So we can completely have the metaverse, like we should completely reimagine what all of that looks like and starting with a value system that's healthy, for your holistic health. But it will take people, I'll say even like myself, to be out there speaking about this and doing it in order for that to happen.
Food is what's killing us in this country. Damn. That's a bitter pill to swallow, but
it is. And coming from a foodie, it's so sad, to hear. Yeah. It's like, how could the thing I love so much and enjoy, be trying to kill me every day. Like, it just doesn't make sense if you think about it that way.
Well, if it doesn't kill us, it makes us stronger, right? That's what they tell me. But this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your story and your expertise and just a really unique spin on holistic health here. Unfortunately, you had to go through what you did, but I love seeing that you're on the other side of it now. And I'll say, in a place of gratitude. I think you even said that. And that is just the best life lesson I think we could ever get through life experiences. But bringing it all home here to the big lesson, the big theme for kind of my approach to life, diet, holistic wellness, everything is, how do I just become more aware of these things that are working for me? How do I pull from others like yourself to help propel me forward, to live a life ever forward? When you hear those two words, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think we know kind of like what's going on internally, when things are off in our body. We just kind of don't take the time to listen, to hear, and then take some action to do anything about it. I think if you ask probably everybody, they want to live a really full life. For as much time as you might have, while you're here on this earth. So for me, like, I'm so grateful that it seems like there was like before remission, BR, now AR, after remission, forever forward, I will move very conscious of everything around me, right? Like heart, love, friendships, the vessel that I have, like everything that is really important, right? Of course, food, the relationship with food I have is a very grateful one. My parents grew up in a country where most people don't even have food, right? There's so much poverty in India. So we grew up with, looking at food as like, we're very grateful to have 3 meals plus a day, right? So it's that coming back to like figuring out what that relationship needed to be. For me, it was like, it will move forward being a conscious one of gratitude. If I skip a meal, I skip a meal. It doesn't really matter, right? I'm not going to like shut down. So yeah, I think this was like my awakening. I had like the near death experience, hit rock bottom. There's a fire in me that decided I needed to rise. And now I'm completely, awakened.
It's reminds me of, I think is an Einstein quote. It's there are two moments when you're born in life. The first one, and then the second one's the reason when you figure out the reason why. And it sounds like you're in that second phase right now.
Yeah, and I'm so lucky, right? Like to even figure that out. So I'm really grateful for it.
Well, I'm grateful for this conversation. I, of course, have all of your information, the book, the TEDx talk, and everything down in the show notes for everybody. But where can they go to connect with you more online, to learn more about you and the work you're doing?
Yeah, SoniaHunt.com and Facebook, Instagram, at Sonia Hunt, Twitter,
all the things,
LinkedIn, all the things. Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm so grateful. So grateful to, be able to share my story. And I hope it resonates with people and inspires them to really, again, like kind of stop and just think about, what's going on with their health. And that there are ways to change and get through it holistically, to be able to really, thrive in life and live the life you want.
So true. Sonia, thank you so much.
Thank you.